My aunt told me I was too poor and too pathetic to ever be part of our family's will, then bragged about the house she was going to get. So I bought it, every brick of it. Now she stands on the sidewalk, staring. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. When I was 16, my whole world cracked. My parents died in a car crash. And just like that, I was sent to live with my Aunt Verna, the same woman who always looked at me like I was a stain on the family name. She didn't hit me or anything. She didn't need to. Her words were enough. Cold, sharp, constant. Every day, she reminded me I wasn't special, that I'd never be anything but a burden. I slept in the attic. I ate last. I learned to stay quiet, but I had dreams. Big ones. I loved drawing houses, sketching buildings, imagining spaces where people felt safe. Architecture wasn't just my escape, it was my future. I worked part-time and applied for scholarships. Every time I talked about college, Verna would laugh and say, "You build houses? Sweetie, you can't even pay rent." When Grandpa passed away, the family gathered for the will reading. I still remember how Verna walked in like she owned the room. She wore her best jewelry and kept touching her hair like she was on camera. I sat in the back, silent. Then came the moment she'd been waiting for, the house in Maine, the one she'd wanted for years. The lawyer said her name, and she lit up like fireworks. But before that, she looked back at me and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Don't look so hopeful, Kelsey. You're too poor to be in the will." Everyone laughed, except me. I didn't cry, not in front of them, but something in me clicked. If they were going to count me out, I was going to make sure they remembered me. It took time. I worked, I studied, I saved every penny. And one day, a listing popped up. The house in Maine, the one she had bragged about for years. Turns out she couldn't afford the taxes. It was back on the market. I made an offer, quietly, with the help of a builder's grant and a tiny inheritance my grandfather had secretly set aside for my education. The sale went through, and now, here I am, 22, standing in the front yard of the house Verna thought she deserved. She came today with a realtor, thinking it was hers. When she saw me holding the keys, planting flowers out front, her face turned pale. She didn't say anything, just stood there on the sidewalk, watching. I smiled. She didn't smile back. And in that moment, I didn't feel poor. I felt powerful. After the will was read and Verna got the house, she couldn't stop smiling. She kept saying things like, "Finally, the universe gives me what I deserve," as if she had worked for it. She hadn't. Grandpa had taken care of that house for decades. She barely visited him, but none of that mattered now. She won. At least, that's what she thought. What people didn't know was that Verna's cruelty didn't start with the will. It had been happening for years. When I turned 18 and started applying for jobs, I used her home address since I still lived there. I never got any calls back. One day, I overheard her talking on the phone with one of her friends. She laughed and said, "Oh, Kelsey, I toss her mail in the trash. No one wants to hire a charity case." She had been throwing out my interview letters. When I confronted her, she smiled and said, "I'm just saving you the heartbreak. You're not cut out for anything serious anyway." I stopped talking after that. I stopped trusting her too. I got a part-time job at a bookstore downtown, paid under the table. It wasn't much, but it gave me enough for bus fare and coffee. I used the store Wi-Fi to study architecture in my free time. No one knew, especially not her. The worst part came the day I saw my mum's old jewelry box missing. It was the last thing I had of her. I searched the whole attic. Gone. Later that week, Verna came home with a brand new designer bag. She never said where she got the money, but I knew. I never forgot that. After the will, she walked around the house humming to herself, already making renovation plans. She didn't even ask me to leave. She just started boxing up my stuff. That was the moment I knew I couldn't stay passive anymore. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just packed up quietly and left with one suitcase and my folder of sketches. I had no idea what came next, but I knew one thing for sure. I would never let her decide my worth again. And one day, she'd regret every word, every smirk, and every time she thought I was too weak to fight back. Verna hated getting her hands dirty, so when it came time to clean out Grandpa's old study, she waved me toward it and said, "Be useful for once, Kelsey." She didn't know that was the best thing she could have done for me. The study hadn't been touched in months. Dust covered every shelf, and the smell of old paper filled the room. But something about being in there felt peaceful. It reminded me of sitting by Grandpa's feet while he read the newspaper or helped me with my school projects. He was always kind to me, even when Werner wasn't. I started with the bookshelves, wiping each one carefully. Then I opened the bottom drawer of his old oak desk, the one he used to keep locked. To my surprise, it wasn't locked anymore. Inside was a small leather folder tied with string. I untied it, expecting maybe more tax papers or old receipts. Instead, I found a letter. It was handwritten, the ink slightly faded, and the first line made my heart stop. To my granddaughter Kelsey, if you're reading this, then the will disappointed you. I'm sorry for that. I sat down slowly, the letter shaking in my hands. He explained that the public will had been changed at the last minute under pressure, and that he didn't trust Werner. He said he had created a hidden trust in my name for a house no one in the family knew about, located in Camden, Maine. He wrote, "This property is yours, but it comes with a condition only you can fulfill. I've left a code, one you'll recognize, in our favorite place." I didn't cry, but I couldn't stop smiling. For the first time in years, I felt like someone believed in me. Grandpa hadn't forgotten me. He'd protected something for me, hidden from people like Werner. The property file included coordinates, a deed number, and notes from a lawyer. It was all real. I carefully tucked the letter back into the folder and carried it to my room, hiding it under the loose floorboard I used for my saving. I didn't tell Werner. She wouldn't believe me anyway. Instead, I went to the library the next morning and used their computer to look up the coordinates. There it was, a beautiful, slightly weathered two-story house surrounded by trees, off-market, quiet, waiting. My heart raced. A new plan started forming. I wasn't going to beg or fight Werner. I had something better now, a chance to build something of my own, something she couldn't touch. And the best part? She had no idea what I had just found. Werner always bragged about this one house in Camden. "It's historic, has character, ocean view," she'd say with her nose in the air. She called it her dream retirement home. Every family gathering, she reminded everyone how she deserved it because she stuck around for Grandpa, as if poisoning his final years with bitterness counted as love. She didn't know I'd found Grandpa's hidden letter, or that the trust he left me could be used to buy a home, any home, with no questions asked. What she really didn't expect was that I'd use it to buy her dream. I didn't rush. I needed to be smart. I reached out to Mr. Langston, Grandpa's retired lawyer and old friend. He remembered me right away. "You always liked drawing houses," he smiled. I showed him the letter, the trust, and the address. He nodded slowly and said, "Your grandfather wanted you to have more than money. He wanted you to have a legacy. That house Werner wanted? It had just been listed quietly by the owners. No public auction, no flashy signs. I used the trust to place a down payment and secured the rest through a local builders program for young buyers with renovation plans. My architecture background helped. They believed in me more than I expected. I didn't tell a soul, not even my best friend. I signed the papers 2 weeks later. Done. Closed. Mine. A few days after that, I saw Werner walking out of her car in Camden, holding a coffee and marching up the front walkway of the house she thought would be hers. Her real estate agent looked confused. I stood in the front yard, trimming a rose bush. She froze. Her mouth dropped open. What are you doing here?" I smiled. "Just taking care of my garden." She looked around, panicked. "This is my house." I reached into my jacket and pulled out the deed with my name on it. Her face turned red. How did you?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I just walked back inside and closed the door slowly, letting her stand there on the sidewalk, speechless. She wanted it so badly. Now she gets to watch me live in it. The day Werner came to the house was almost surreal. I knew she was coming. Small-town news travels fast, especially when someone like Werner is involved. She'd set up a visit with the realtor, fully expecting to sign the papers and claim her dream house. The same house I had already bought days earlier, using the trust Grandpa left me and a loan I worked hard to qualify for. It was a quiet morning. The breeze was soft, and I was on my knees in the front yard, planting a few lavender bushes near the porch. My sleeves were rolled up, fingers in the dirt, feeling peaceful, maybe for the first time in years. That peace lasted all of 5 seconds. Her car door slammed. I heard her heels on the walkway before I saw her. She came around the hedge like a storm, sunglasses pushed onto her head, eyes scanning the house. Behind her was a confused realtor, flipping through her folder, already sensing something was wrong. When Werner saw me, in her yard, she stopped cold. "You've got to be kidding me," she snapped. "What are you doing here?" I looked up, wiped my hands on my jeans and smiled. "Just gardening." She stared at me, then at the house, then back at me. "This is a mistake. You're trespassing." "I live here," I said simply. She laughed, a short, hard laugh. You? Live here? You can't even afford a new pair of shoes. I don't need new shoes to own a house. That's when the screaming started. Full-blown, red-faced rage. She shouted about betrayal, about how I must have cheated the system, how I didn't deserve anything with a roof. The realtor tried to calm her down, but Werner was too far gone. She yelled about the will, about what she was owed, about how Grandpa always favoured the wrong people. I let her rant, let her throw her tantrum right there on the street. Then, without saying a word, I stood, walked to the porch, and pulled the deed from a folder I'd left by the door. I walked down the steps and handed it to her. Her hands shook as she read it. Her eyes scanned the document again and again. My name was printed clearly across the top, Kelsey Monroe, owner. She looked up at me, her voice suddenly small. You stole this. No, I said. I earned it, and you're scaring my realtor. Please leave. She stood there, frozen, breathing heavy. Then she dropped the paper, turned, and stormed back to her car. I bent down, picked up the deed, and walked back inside. From my window, I saw her drive off, her tires screeching. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even smug. I was calm. Let her scream. I'd already won. I didn't expect to find anything in the attic. It was just a dusty old space with creaky floorboards and forgotten furniture. But something about the uneven paneling in the corner caught my eye. I ran my fingers along the wood and felt a small gap. When I pressed on it, the panel popped loose, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a metal box, old and rusted, but still locked tight. It took me an hour and a screwdriver to pry it open. What I found inside made my heart stop. There were journals, my grandfather's, written in his neat, sharp handwriting. There were also old land deeds, letters, and medical records. I sat cross-legged on the attic floor, flipping through page after page. The journals told a story I never knew. My grandfather had started to question his own memory in his final year. He wrote about forgetting names, misplacing items, and feeling foggy. But what chilled me was the way he described Werner. He wrote how she insisted he didn't need a nurse, that she'd take care of him herself. He mentioned how she began handling his mail, screening his calls, even convincing him to rewrite his will because the family didn't need drama. One entry stood out. He wrote, Kelsey has been distant lately. Werner says she's moved on and doesn't care, but something about that doesn't feel right. I miss her. I hadn't moved on. Werner just never gave me a chance to be near him. She isolated him slowly, sweetly, like poison in tea. And the land deeds. One of them was for my parents' old home. It was never legally transferred to Werner, just temporarily held. My grandfather had left a note on it. Return to Kelsey when she's ready. Tears welled in my eyes. I'd thought I was getting revenge by buying the house Werner wanted, but now I realized this was bigger. This was about truth, about justice. My grandfather never meant to cut me out. Werner had twisted everything. I packed the documents carefully. They were more than paper. They were proof, and maybe, just maybe, they were my way to finally set things right. I didn't storm into court with a loud voice or angry words. I walked in quietly, holding a folder full of truth. The same truth I found tucked away in the attic, written in my grandfather's own hand, backed by property records, medical notes, and legal inconsistencies. I was nervous, my palms sweaty, my heartbeat loud, but I knew what I had was real. Werner was already there, dressed like she was attending a garden party, full of fake smiles. She didn't think I would go this far. In her mind, I was still the scared, silent girl she could push around, but she didn't know how much I had changed. The court process was long. Days stretched into weeks. Werner brought lawyers who tried to bury me under fancy words and twisted stories. She cried in front of the judge, said I was confused, that I misread the documents. At one point, she even accused me of breaking into the attic and forging the journals, but I stayed calm. My grandfather's handwriting was verified. The medical records told the truth about his mental state in the final months. And the land deeds, especially the one with his note, were the final nail. Every piece fit perfectly. I didn't have to scream. The facts spoke louder than anything Werner could say. I'll never forget the look on her face when the judge read the decision. Cold, pale, frozen. The judge declared that Werner's influence over my grandfather was deeply concerning. Because of the evidence, parts of the will were overturned. The house Werner had claimed as her own, gone, returned to me, my parents' land, officially mine. The rest of the estate was placed under review, and Werner's access to funds was frozen until the investigation was complete. She shouted, She accused the court of being corrupt. She said I manipulated the system. But this time, no one believed her. Even her lawyer stood there in silence, unwilling to back her anymore. I walked out of that courthouse with no anger in my heart, just peace. Not because I had taken something from her, but because I had taken back what was always supposed to be mine. Outside, Verna sat on the steps, tears streaking her makeup, making a scene. I didn't stop. I didn't look at her. I just stepped into the car, holding the folder close to my chest. It was over now, and I had won, quietly, completely. Verna always walked like the world belonged to her, head high, lips pursed, judging everyone she passed. But now, she walked out of the courthouse like a shadow, smaller, slower. The fallout came quickly. Her accounts were frozen while the investigation continued. Her carefully maintained image began to unravel. The first sign was the car, repossessed. Then her credit cards stopped working. Her name was splashed across the local news after the court records were made public. Her husband, embarrassed and furious, packed a bag and left. Her grown children, who she had always bragged about, stopped answering her calls. She tried to post on Facebook like nothing had happened, but no one believed the lies anymore. In less than a month, she was evicted from the house she thought she'd die in. I heard she moved into a cheap motel outside town, the kind where the hallway carpets smell like mold and the vending machine barely works. She called around for help, even left a message on my phone, pretending to clear the air. I didn't answer. While Verna's world collapsed, mine was just beginning. I had the keys to my parents' old house, my real home. It was in rough shape after years of neglect, but I didn't care. Every creaky floorboard, every dusty window had a memory tucked inside it. I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. I painted the walls myself. I restored the front porch, where my dad used to drink his morning coffee. I even found old furniture in the shed that my mum had picked out years ago. I cleaned it all, piece by piece, and brought it back to life. Some days I cried while I worked. Some days I sang. But every nail I hammered in, every board I replaced, felt like I was reclaiming not just a home, but myself. People in town started to notice. They'd slow down as they passed by, smile, wave. I wasn't that quiet girl from the Will drama anymore. I was Kelsey Monroe, the girl who stood up, fought back, and built something better from the ashes. And as I painted the front door a bold, warm red, I knew Verna was out there somewhere, watching from a motel window, wondering how it all slipped away. The smell of cinnamon and roasted turkey filled every corner of the house. Soft music played from an old record player I'd repaired myself. For the first time in years, the long wooden table in my parents' dining room was set with polished silverware, cloth napkins, and mismatched plates, each one holding its own piece of family history. The house, once dark and neglected, glowed with life again. I had invited everyone, my cousins from out of state, my great-uncle Joe, who always told corny jokes, even my second cousin Maddie, who I hadn't seen since I was a teenager. People came with pies and casseroles, flowers and warm hugs. Some said they were shocked I still wanted to host after everything Verna had done. I just smiled and said, "This house deserves joy again." Laughter filled the living room as we passed old photo albums around, pointing at childhood memories and long-gone relatives. Someone played the piano in the corner, and we all sang along badly but cheerfully. No one asked where Verna was. No one missed her sharp tongue or icy looks. In truth, I think everyone felt a quiet relief, but I knew she was there. Right before dinner started, I saw her, parked across the street in a faded blue sedan, engine idling, windows cracked. She was watching us. From behind the wheel, her face was pale and tight, eyes fixed on the glowing windows, like they were taunting her. For a brief moment, our eyes met. She didn't wave. She didn't get out. She just sat there, alone, forgotten, on the outside of something she used to believe was hers. The same house she mocked me over, fought for, and ultimately lost. She used to say I'd never be more than a sad little guest in this family. But now, I was the one hosting Thanksgiving, and she was the ghost outside. I closed the curtains slowly, gently, not to hurt her, just to protect what was inside. We sat down for dinner and gave thanks, not just for food or family, but for peace, for the strength to survive betrayal, for the courage to build something new. I looked around the table and saw smiles, not secrets, joy, not judgment. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly home, not because of the walls or the roof, but because I chose who got to walk through the door and who stayed outside. The fire crackled softly as I curled up in the old armchair, one my mum used to read in. The house was quiet now. The dishes from Thanksgiving were washed and tucked away. The laughter had faded into memory, and outside, snow began to fall gently against the window. It was just me, and the warmth, and a letter I'd read 100 times, but never aloud. My grandfather's handwriting was rough, uneven in places, but full of heart. In his words, I didn't find promises of riches or long speeches about legacy. I found something better: honesty. He knew the family had fractures. He knew Verna had her claws in too deep, but he believed in me. Not because I was loud or forceful, but because I paid attention. Because I had a heart that stayed open, even after people tried to close it. I used to think winning meant proving people wrong. I used to think I had to become someone else, tougher, colder, to survive what Verna put me through. But the truth is, I didn't win because I fought like her. I won because I didn't. This house isn't a trophy. It's not revenge. It's a place I brought back to life with my own hands. Every brush of paint, every board I replaced, every flower I planted, it was for me. Not to show Verna I could, but to remind myself I never needed her permission. For years, she made me feel small, like I had to earn my place, like I didn't matter unless I had something she wanted. But now I know, no one decides my worth. Not her, not anyone. I looked at the letter again and smiled. My grandfather hadn't left me instructions for revenge. He'd left me a key to healing, quiet, steady, and mine alone. I reached for the glass beside me, a simple red wine I'd saved for this night. I lifted it gently toward the fireplace, the flames dancing like they knew. To peace, I whispered, soft and full of meaning, the kind no one can steal. Do you think Kelsey made the right choice by closing the curtain and moving on? Or should she have confronted Verna one last time? I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. And if you enjoy powerful stories like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next one.